I'm Denis Nuja. I'm the CEO of Enakta Labs, and we have a little update on what we have been doing for the last year. So, short about Enakta Labs, probably most of you know it. We have been founded in 2023 as the DAOS specific company to bring DAOS products in the market and do active development. We have been one of the founding members of the DAOS Foundation. We actively contribute. And today we are shipping our third version of the Enakta platform, which is based on DAOS'25. This manages the whole life cycle of DAOS from deployment to running it in production. And it brings some additional features that are not available in the open source version due to some, I would say, specific stacks like Microsoft SMB, etc. The major difference this year is that we brought RoCE support on 400 gigabit Ethernet to the platform. So what we did is, with help of our friends at Core42, we got access to a very, very large supercomputer class cluster, which we used to test our platform and DAOS scaling and performance. This was based on Broadcom Thor 2 NICs, 400 gigabit, with Arista switching fabric. We did validate the whole system. It is working, and we now fully support these kind of things with few caveats. Now, the caveats that come from this is that we did hit some problems with this fabric. This probably is not a surprise to anybody that builds very large systems, our friends at Aurora, for example, where we started seeing problems as we scaled the amount of nodes. And some of them are currently being fixed with new releases of firmware and drivers. And we do expect to be able to run the full-scale system properly soon, trademark. Unfortunately, this was not in time to be able to release any IO500 numbers on a RoCE-enabled deployment, which we are very sad about. But we did release a pure TCP/IP test, which we feel that a lot of people that are looking at DAOS might find interesting for deployments where you don't have InfiniBand or RoCE-enabled fabrics. So we will see those results soon on the i500 release. This is also a sneak peek of a single client performance running a RoCE Thor 2 fabric deployment, where we hit 270 gigabytes a second of reads and 250-60 gigabytes a second of writes from a single client node to a DAOS cluster. This was accomplished using 8 times 400 gig NICs in a very standard GPU-style box deployment. And it does show that DAOS and its native access is very performant and will scale, especially with the amount of NICs. The problems there start to be, memory bandwidth of the CPU, IRQs, etc., more than DAOS itself. It is stable. This was repeatable over and over again without any issues. And yeah, it just shows where DAOS is going to go. And we are very happy to see what the 800 gigabit NICs that are coming next will prove. Now, also, what we are starting to do this year is validating running DAOS and Enakta platform on AMD style machines. So this is a very standard 64-core flash box from AMD. So single socket with 12 to 14 NVMEs. We have, I think it was 144 of these in the cluster currently, and we're doing some testing and validation of how to make it work the best way. Because as we know, AMD CPUs, they might be one socket, but they're not one NUMA node. And there's a lot of problems and workarounds on how to actually make this work really well. What else we have been doing? Shipping more production systems. Continuing work on interface integrations, which Denis B is going to talk later about. This has been very important work that we've been very happy to do. So DAOS, to be able to expand its user base, needs more ways of access. So we've been focusing on doing SMB, NFS, S3, PyTorch integration that we did with our colleagues in Google, etc. And we are continuing on this. Also working inside the TSC usability group to improve DAOS day 2 operations. Because running a 1,000-node DAOS system with 20 support engineers is a very different story than running it with 2 guys that have no clue what this is. And yeah, it's very important to us. And we are collaborating with hardware vendors to get validation and certification done. For example, with Broadcom and Arista for this new fabric. Still, the offer is out. If you want to test DAOS in an easy way, you're welcome to contact us, especially if you're educational or something. We'll help you out for free. And we want to get DAOS in as many people's hands as possible, because that also gives us the feedback on how they want to use it and how it actually is working. Now, is there any questions that you might have? Before anybody asks about the Rocky on Thor, we will share more findings and everything in more details in our blog and everything post IO 500. And we hope to have a proper run to really show off what this fabric is capable of. Yeah, I'll take any questions that you may have. So, this was a very unique opportunity where we had 10 client nodes and about 200, 300 server nodes in the back on a fabric that did Rocky and TCP IP pure. We can say that the difference on bandwidth is approximately 2 to 2.5x in favor of Rocky. So as you saw, we hit 275 gigabytes a second on a single node with Rocky. TCP does not scale that well. Now there's a question.
That's at what IO size?
That's with the 16 mega IO size IO 500 easy read and write test. I mean, it was purely test to see if the client is actually capable of pushing that, right? Yeah. So we tested from like 20 workers up to 110 workers, which is the exact amount of cores in the machine. What we found is with large IO, we cap out very early. Yeah, we cap out at like 30 cores. This was very important for us because the idea, especially testing with our colleagues at Core 42, is could we run DAOS as a converged solution on the existing GPU nodes that have 8 NVMEs in each of the nodes, right? Those NVMEs are already in there. There are CPUs that most of the time are doing nothing. So could we actually run DAOS as a storage solution on the GPU nodes themselves without having to add additional hardware? What we proved is that yes, it is possible. There are some things that need to be taken care of more careful, like CPU allocations and balancing everything. There's also a few things on the fabric, but that depends on the fabric, right? For us, we had a fully layer 3 routed VRP type style Ethernet fabric, so it's a bit different than if you had InfiniBand. But yeah, it's now proven that it works. It's possible, and the performance that you get out of those systems is actually very, very compelling. We were testing with old Gen 4 drives, so Samsung 1733As, which are read-intensive, run-of-the-mill drives from a few years ago. And the performance that we got was very compelling. DAOS, at the end of the day, does scale pretty much linearly, and it just works. Yeah.
With TCP, could you hit the max performance, like with enough threads or
no.
whatever? Just put...
No. So TCP could hit max performance if we're talking about 1 or 2 NICs worth of bandwidth. Yeah, no problem. The moment that we have 8 of them, there's a lot of other things in play. And unfortunately, no. I think you saw the results of the TCP run, which will be announced. It is not as awesome as all the RDMA results that we've seen from DAOS, but when we look at all the other storage systems and compare them to all the other storage systems on the IO500 list, it's still faster than all of them on TCP, pure TCP. So, it's still good. If you don't have a Rocky or InfiniBand fabric, DAOS is still a compelling solution. Yeah. The metadata with MD on NVMe, what we found is that in the real life, it is a bit slower than PMM-enabled systems. It is slower. Now, is that difference going to become smaller when we add the new CPUs and the Gen 5 latest 6 drives? Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt any.
No problem.
I was curious, did you experience any stability issues with Rocky? In particular, like any kernel panics or kernel oops, or else just like in general network timeouts?
Okay, so the question is, have we experienced any stability issues with our testing of Rocky? Okay, so we experienced a lot of issues. We had about 6 weeks of testing, and most of the issues were actually not down to the kernel or to DAOS at all. Beyond the initial issues getting proper PFC working, which is very important when we're trying to push all this data into 10 clients, after that, the problem that we had was down to firmware / drivers of the Thor2 NIC. It is being resolved. There are new coming out. It's better. What we found is that as we start pushing the nodes to very limits, right? I mean, we were pushing, 2.5 terabits into a single box. We get to a point where effectively start seeing fabric spread timeouts. So not on a single NIC, there's no problem. Driver is still up, NIC is still up, but we start seeing timeouts. And that is one of the reasons why we couldn't finish the IO500 full run, because we would get almost to the end and then no. But we do feel with the work that Broadcom has done, and I have to say Arista helped a lot in debugging these problems. We do feel that we will be able to provide that solution. So from a DAOS perspective, Rocky works, no problem at all. We will be testing also, I think the next cluster is coming with CX7, ConnectX-7, also on Ethernet. So it will be very interesting to see the differences.
What sort of diagnostic info did you have to provide Arista to help you figure out what's going on?
What kind of diagnostic information? Core dumps from configurations, NICs firmwares. Arista had full control of the network, so they could see everything on the switch sides. They were on site. So we really did get a lot of help, proper help. And I'm very thankful to those guys. We did some really good testing and we got some really interesting information out of it. Yeah. Yes?
How many tiers was that Arista network? Like spine, super spine?
It was 3,900 switches in the fabric. Was it correct, Chip? Was it 3,900 switches, the fabric?
That sounds about right. I don't
Yeah. So this was effectively a 10,000 GPU, 1,140 nodes GPU system.
You were testing it across the entire network? Like
Yes.
You were spanning all of the...
So we tested in many different ways. For example, at one point we were testing with 500 nodes for DAOS, and then across the whole system. Then we were testing the 10 nodes stuff. Then we also started picking different nodes from different leaves and everything to see, are we maybe pushing some boundaries somewhere? So, I mean, it was 6 weeks of grueling every day, all kind of playing around. And yeah, we have a lot of dumps and information and everything. I have to say DAOS was stable. We really did not have problems much with the DAOS fabric. Also the TCP stuff, I have to say, I know that Google did a lot of good work on the TCP side of DAOS. TCP has been rock solid for us. It's a default deployment for some of our users, so TCP has been rock solid. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you very much.